My talk isn't scientific at all, I'm afraid. I'm not a scientist. Mine is really coming from a homeowner's point of view, I think, from experience of living in old houses and helping people who live in old houses to make their houses more energy efficient. So, this is my last house. This is the house that we bought. It was in a terrible state. Timber frame covered in cement render, hadn't really been touched or maintained for donkey's years. But I fell in love with it because of those wonderful windows you can see on the left-hand side that stick out. And my husband knew that as soon as I'd seen those windows, any resistance was futile. We were going to buy this house. And he was right. I spent a year of my life repairing this house with my husband, and one of the first things we did after scaffolding and taking off the cement render and replacing the sole plates and mending the leaks in the roof was to take out the windows in order to refurbish them. All of the windows on the front of the house had been completely painted in, none of them opened, and they just put one layer of gloss paint over another for many, many years. So we had to just tease the windows out of their apertures in order to maintain them. Charles did visit in those early days. I think you dated these about 1840, these windows, if I recall. You took a screw out of one of the sash pulleys. I think you actually might have swapped it as well, I have a feeling. I nipped out to make a cup of tea and I came back and I'm sure I saw a modern screw in there in its place. So yeah, I did remove it with a hot air gun. I'm not sure if I was supposed to have done that now, having heard of what Laura was saying yesterday, but I was very, very careful, didn't go near any glass, put back linseed oil paint, put it back in very, very thin layers. Absolutely fantastic, and I have absolutely no regrets about that. It looked amazing, and the maintenance regime on that for the years to come, I didn't have to touch those windows for 10 years afterwards, after painting them with linseed oil paint. 5 layers of very thin linseed oil paint. Anyway, then the next thing we had done was we got them draft-proofed. So I had a reputable company come up, didn't really know an awful lot about it, and turned up with a massive team of men who took all the windows out and cut all these rebates in, went crazy with routers. All rather alarming, actually, for my beautiful 1840 windows. And, can't say I was terribly happy about it, but, this had to be done to make the building more draft-proof. But they really did do a lot of invasive damage to these windows. I have to say they were good, they were careful, but nonetheless, they could have made one hell of a mess had they not been skilled people. And I think I would always think twice now before getting my windows, any old windows, draft-proof, just because of the invasive nature of the draft-proofing. But there you go, they routed them. They didn't prime the outsides before putting them back in, so I had to tell them. We took them back out, we primed them. Very annoying for them because they had to hang around while the primer dried before they could reassemble the windows. But that is something to look out for. So there we go. There's the house, all finished, scaffold down, lime washed, very, very happy. We move in, and then we notice the noise. A lot of noise. We are on an A road, and it was just unbearable, I have to say. And the draft proofing, it helped a bit, but it didn't help a lot, and it certainly didn't make living on that road much easier. So first winter comes, and I noticed condensation pouring down the windows. Still got single glazing, and you can see there the black mould that was forming after the first winter on my new paintwork. These are the windows at the back of the house that had also been draft-proofed. I just felt like all of that money spent on draft-proofing, A, it had done a tremendous amount of damage to the windows, and B, it hadn't really helped the 2 major problems, which was noise and condensation. So now my light bulb moment. How do I set about doing something about this problem, making living in this lovely old house easier? So I developed this sort of strategy of looking at windows. It's something I do with homeowners now, time and time again. Homeowners just want to just want to apply blanket solutions to all the windows in their house, whether that's let's draft-proof them all, let's rip them all out and put in double glazing, let's switch all the glass for slimline, whatever. And in fact, what you need to do is look at windows intelligently. You need to split every window up and think about how you use it, which is the point of my talk. So we divided our windows up into 3 categories. Windows that we never open. And we quickly realised why all the windows on the front of the house were painted up, because the previous owners had never opened these windows because of the noisy road. And once we'd made that realisation, that was fantastic. We'd completely different solution to the problem. We had windows that we only opened during the winter months. And we realised this after the first winter in the house. There were certain windows we never wanted to open during the winter months. And then we had windows that we opened all year round, for instance, bathrooms. So once we divided our windows into these 3 categories, then we could apply sensible solutions to them. So for windows that are never opened, then I think, well, magnetic panel secondary glazing is an absolute no-brainer. And in fact, the windows on the front of the house, we had storm windows come in and they fitted toughened glass secondary glazing and magnetic lift-out panels. And because we never open them, there is better clarity through glass than there is through plastic. And I know some plastic suppliers will dispute that, but having lived with lots of different sorts, it does scratch a little bit when you clean it. You do get better clarity through glass. And although the radiation results, didn't take that into account at the time, and I might actually think about that now. So that is a trade-off. But I think for windows you never open, it's a no-brainer. Magnetic panels, whether you're having some sort of plastic system, whether you're having a glass system, you just need something. The other advantage of the glass that no one's talked about is that it is also burglar-proof. So you can't break in through a magnetic panel on toughened glass, because you have to lift it. There's a mechanism, you've got to lift it from the inside and take it out. Whereas, of course, the plastic you could just pop out and it would be relatively easy to break in. So that's what we had done on the front. Once a year, I take it off and I hoover out the spiders and the cobwebs and the other bits and bobs. Quite alarming, though, that then I read in the Historic England advice, if you're going to have this sort of secondary glazing, don't draft-proof the outer window. And, of course, all of these windows, I'd spent a fortune draft-proofing, massacring the outer panes, just to find out at this stage that I'd done the wrong thing, which was very demoralising. But anyway, it didn't seem to cause a problem because actually the draft-proofing wasn't brilliant anyway. Still drafts coming in through the sash pulleys. So I think there was still quite a bit of air circulation within that cavity. So it's never been a problem. But what has made a tremendous difference is we have this, it cut the noise unbelievably down in those bedrooms and made living in that house so much easier. I can't give the exact figures, but the difference in the acoustics in those rooms was unbelievable. So I use that a lot, and I've recommended, Storm and Selector Glaze are the 2 companies that I'm aware of that fit this sort of system. I'm sure there are others out there, apologies to you. But I think and certainly if you're getting the magnetic secondary glazing with the toughened glass, do ask for the very slimmest of edge, because I know the first generation of storm windows had a wider edge. The ones that I've used since have got a much thinner edge, and you can also get a seal, the little seal, little rubber seal, you can get in off-white as well as white. And I think they do it in a variety of colours. Do ask the storm guys at the back. But that's really, really important. A lot of people have off-white windows these days, and to put in a bright white magnetic panel does not look great. The other thing about the toughened glass that is the disadvantage is the bigger the window, the heavier they get, and you do need to clear them out every 6 to 12 months to clean the cavity. So if you're getting really big, then it becomes a bigger operation to actually lift the toughened glass panel off. For windows that are only open during the warmer months, so we realise that an awful lot of our windows we close in November and we won't open again until March. For those windows, we had a different strategy. Now, of course, this is the cheap and cheerful solution. I think I did this as a student many years ago in Liverpool when we lived in a freezing cold house. And I think it certainly has some benefits if you want to do something very cheaply. The cling film over the window for a season, it is worth it if you're really struggling. But for us, we the first thing we did was, and this was 16 years ago, we got online the plastic panels. This is my husband diligently following my instructions. And the first time we used it, we used a steel tape on the frame and a magnetic tape on the panel. Now, the great advantage of that is the two things, the steel tape and the magnetic tape, do not need to line up exactly. So you can fit the steel tape right close to the edge. So for aesthetics, when the window's off, it looks great, but the window will still fit. The panel, which is always slightly different in size, will still fit. I'm not explaining this very well, but I'll explain it better later. A lot of these magnetic panels, you do need to adapt your window frame because the window frames aren't flush. So you see here, the plane is not flush here. So we have to sometimes add a little bit of wood to make the plane of the window frame flush all the way around the outside, so that you can then fit your magnetic panel to it. So that's something we have to look at. With a lot of homeowners we work with, we get a joiner in to make those adaptations. Now, if you are buying an online version, this was in one of the rooms in our house. This was from Magna Glaze, and I don't know if you can quite see there, but the window is a bit of a trapezium shape. It's a timber framed house. It's not quite square, and a lot of the online companies, they will only sell rectangular panels, and some of them only to the nearest 5 mil. So that can be a problem if you've got a slightly out of square window. And measuring it can be quite tricky, getting those measurements just right. But can be done. So companies like Magna Glaze, £100 a square metre for a panel, providing you can fit it yourself, I think is fantastic value. I've used that a lot. But the cheaper DIY online products, they can only deal with rectangular windows generally. There are some companies now that will take a template. So if you have an outer square window, you'll need to find a company that will accept either a template, and I think Extra Glaze do accept templates, or you need to get a company who will come and measure a bespoke panel. And actually I got Cocoon, who unfortunately have very kindly sponsored 2 places on this conference and have given us a lot of sponsorship, but they couldn't be here. They came and fitted a couple of windows in another room in my house last year, and I've got a little video. I'm hoping it will play. So this is Cocoon. And they expertly templated. These aren't actually particularly old windows, I'm afraid. But they came and took exact templates of these windows, 2 millimetre gap around the outside, cut them on site to fit exactly, and did the most beautiful job in fitting them. And so they've got a team of people. They're expanding more into England now, but this is, The point here is they've got a double magnet system, as I think most of these companies now have, and you have to align the magnet that is stuck on the frame with the magnet that is stuck on the panel exactly. So this chap here has got this very clever technique now of taking the tape off the magnetic panel that's stuck on the frame. So it's offered up as one piece, and it's difficult to explain. But anyway, it's really, really important if you get a double magnet system that the magnet on the panel is exactly aligned with the magnet on the frame. Otherwise, they will repel each other. So that is one thing to be aware of if you are fitting this. And you need to be able to, if they fit really tightly, the first time I fitted one of these, I just could not get the blooming thing out again once it was in. Since then I've either super glued on a little see-through hook, or I think quite a lot of the companies now, this is what Cocoon provides, and I think a lot of the companies now provide these suckers that you can actually take off and to pull the systems off. And another thing to think about, I should just mention, is fire escape. It's really important in an old house, well, in any house, that you have a practiced route for escape, that the kids know where it is, what to do in the event of a fire, and that window that you're planning to escape from, probably more than one, is easy to open. So you don't want secondary glazing that might restrict opening that window, and you certainly don't want to be fumbling around looking for a sucker to pull off your plastic panel. Really, really important. And in fact, when it comes to fire, it might even be a case of replacing a window in order to make a safe exit route that can be easily opened. Sometimes you can use a floating mullion in this instance here, where a window proportion was replicated, but with the floating mullion so that the actual opening was much larger and easy to get out of. For outer square windows, as windows often are, you do need to think about templating them. And if you are building these things into your, we retrofit a lot of buildings, and we internally insulate walls quite often. And we can build in, now if we know we're going to have a panel, one of these magnetic panels, we actually build in some sort of little rebate so that the panel can neatly fit into that. Now, for people who like to open their windows all year round, I am not one of those people who sleeps in a bedroom that is freezing cold, but I know a lot of healthy types out there do. I can't see the point in having spent all day trying to warm the house up to then open the window through the night to cool it all down again. But obviously there are rooms in your house that will need an opening window all year round. I don't want to go to bed wearing these sorts of clothes. I think Robin secretly does go to bed looking like this, actually. When I go to bed, I want to look like this, okay? So opening a window at night is no good for me, but I do believe that you have to open windows in your bathroom. That is super important. And whatever the temperature outside, and I think this is another video, I'm hoping, whatever the temperature outside, I have to say this is a modern window. It is a duplex window, which is a standard double glazing with planted-on glazing bars. But it is really important to open your window, and you can see there. Can you see the steam rising out through that window? It's really important after a shower. However good your extract, unless you've got MVHR, which might cope, you really do need to open a window in a bathroom after a shower just to get rid of some of that excess humidity. And I would like a study. I've been in discussions with various people like Steve Hodgson, who we've discussed how long you should open that window for in the winter. And it's that trade-off between getting the humidity out but not bringing all the freezing cold air back in. So it'd be interesting to know what the optimum time is for opening a window after a shower. Another bit of research if anyone wants to commission that. So you will need, in those windows that you need to open all year round, some sort of sliding secondary glazed system. Again, this is a storm window sliding secondary glazing that I fitted 16 years ago, which was brilliant, although the top panel did not slide down, unfortunately. So some sort of secondary glazing system that will slide and open. This was a window that I saw a couple of weekends ago in a nice country house hotel, and they had double sets of sash windows, single glazed sash windows, which was quite interesting. And this was in Transylvania when I visited, standard 19th century double windows. A couple of other things, very, very important to insulate the reveals during a retrofit. And I think Paul has just shown that very clearly with that thermal imaging. That was really interesting to see. But reveals often get overlooked. And that's why you get all that mold buildup, is because the reveals are not airtight or they're not insulated. So in a house, you do need to insulate the reveals if you're insulating the walls. But one thing you must remember is if you are then going to go on to put some sort of secondary glazing up, you have to leave enough room on the edge of the frame in order to get that panel in, if you're going for a panel like that. Although I have to say, having looked at Gecko yesterday, they might have come up with a solution where you don't need that. So do go and look at Gecko's stand. There are some, all around the room, there are some fantastic secondary glazing suppliers, and I would urge you to all go and have a look at them, because they all offer something slightly different. And between them, they have a solution for every window type on offer. And I know there's some really clever ways as well. I've used extra glaze more recently, and you can stack the panels. When you want to open a window, you can take the magnetic system off and stack it on another window in order to be able to open that window, which is a really clever idea. Mitchell & Dickinson have got some really brilliant ways of doing the sash window. So each one of these companies has a slightly different way of doing something, but all with brilliant results. And I think there is so many windows that need retrofitting. There is plenty of work to go around. So none of these need to be in competition. They just all need to be promoted by us to get out to those Richard Scropes of the world who want to rip out their lovely sash windows and put in new. So in conclusion, windows are all unique. They need to all be treated differently. Even windows within the same building are often completely different and need an individual solution found for each one. The people who use old buildings, the people who work in old buildings, who live in old buildings, all need something slightly different from those buildings. Openable, non-openable. The room use is really important. So you need to think about how you use the room, whether you need an opening solution, whether you need a solution that you take off in the warmer months and stack under the bed. I've got, at the moment, under my bed, I've had a bed specially made to accommodate lots and lots of plastic panels that go into old duvet covers under the bed. So for the summer months, that's where they're all kept. The moths go crazy under my bed as well because they love it. Interventions should be carefully considered individually, not blanket solutions for houses. Based on the use of that room and based on the people who live in it, they should be reversible, really important. And draft proofing that involves routing out old windows is not reversible. And I don't think I would ever do it again, partly because I don't think it is good enough, and because it doesn't deal with conduction, and it only partly addresses airtightness, but also it just does too much damage. They should be practical. You should be able to lift those panels out, you should be able to clean, you should be able to do whatever you need to do in the cavity. They should be energy efficient, and secondary glazing is infinitely more energy efficient than draft proofing. And they should be affordable. And as we've seen, from the cheapest secondary glazing systems that you can get online, like Magnaglaze, to the more bespoke and tailor-made solutions like Cocoon and Mitchell & Dickinson, where people will come to your house and survey it and fit it for you. They should be affordable for everybody. And they should be beautiful. That's really important. And beauty, aesthetics are essential, but energy efficiency is also really important if we're going to justify keeping old windows. If I've got 1 second, you might have been interested in my windows from my old house. I thought that they were built like that originally for shop front or whatever. Charles came and told me, no, nonsense. They've gone like that because it's a timber-framed house and it's moved over the years. And of course, he was right, annoyingly. And he was proved right when we were clearing out the loft space and we discovered the original shutters from that shop front that fitted on the outside in a slot. Right the way across the window. So that's how they dealt with solar gain and security. Thank you very much for listening.